Alright, for those of you who are still having problems installing, or if you're having problems installing VirtualBox, or you still haven't made it through, because I can't unfortunately spend so much time with each individual person. However, when the class is over with this evening, I can spend a lot of time. So just as soon as the things wait, if you just wait long enough, you'll end the day with a completely installed system. If you go to the bhacker.com website, which some of you have already, where you can see we have how to install the JDK, how to install Eclipse, how to install the Android SDK. These are YouTube videos. If you click on any of the YouTube videos, it takes you to the YouTube site. If you go into the, let me stop the video here. If you go into the site is actually, hold on one second. Can't get to my main site. Here, I'll just go to the site here. The channel is BJ, J stands for Jill, BJ Hecker, Barbara Jill Hecker, BJ Hecker. So that's the site, www.youtube.com. If you go in and look at the browse the videos and go into some of the playlist sections, you'll see 2011, 2012 version of this class, all the recorded videos. You'll also see all of the tutorials in here. So you'll be able to see, and then what I'm going to do after today is stick a link in the bhacker.com site for all of the videos that were recorded from today's lectures. So if you came back late from lunch and went, wait a minute, they just went through VideoBox and I missed it, a VirtualBox and I missed it, you can watch the video. So, and then I'll show you where those links are. Okay. Lo and behold, there's one last fail-safe way to run your application. Hello. There's one other way of running your application. Android devices are extremely cheap. You don't want to deal with the emulators. You don't want to deal with VirtualBox. You have an Android device. Any device will work. Turn your device on. Plug it. Oops, not plugged in. Plug it into the computer. And then we can run it with no installation of anything, actually. What's this? The disk is inserted, is not readable. I'll just ignore this. I have to unload. Oh, that's why. Get out of here. I plugged in my little Samsung device, and I'm going to wait a few minutes here. It does take, my device takes a few minutes. There's something on here that'll say, do you want to mount it as a disk or whatever? I could possibly be trying to load it in here. Let me shut this down. Oh, no, here it comes. Finally, it says, connect to storage. Connect storage to PC. You can't see it, but there's this little thing on here. Your device might say something else. It says USB connected. Mine's slow. Connect storage to PC. I'm going to say OK. Now I should have a icon that's going to appear on my desktop. Here it is. It's no name icon, and my camera's going to load up. I don't want the camera. And I'm going to double click on her, and I'm going to see that this is the contents of my SD card on my Android device. You can seriously get an Android device for like 50 bucks right now, I think. $100. Those little Google things, great. Make your life a lot easier, because see what you have on here. You have helloworld.apk. That was one I installed on here. How did I get it on here? We're going to drag and drop from the Eclipse project, put it in the SD card, disconnect the device, press on the icon, and install it on the device. Works that easy. So I'm going to go back to Eclipse, and I'm going to open up the project, and I'm going to go into the bin directory, and lo and behold, I have two items. Let me make this a little bigger so you can see it. Well, okay, it's not getting bigger. Ah, here we go. Remember that DEX file I talked about before? That's the executable file. It's like an exe file, but we don't want that one. I want APK file. If I install an APK file over it, that allows me to go ahead and run through and install. Unfortunately, I can't show it to you on my screen, but I can kind of walk you through it and see how it's going to look, because it can't be shown on a... Oops. There we go. Bring that back down. So I have my mounted USB disk, my Samsung device, which looks like my SD card over here. Actually, while I'm out here, I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I'm going to throw away Hello World. That was from the last time I demonstrated this. So I'm going to put the new one on here. How am I going to get it on here? I'm going to drag it. So I'm going to put hello today.apk on here. Now I have it on here. So now I can disconnect it. So I'm going to disconnect it. So easy disconnect. Just eject it. Yours, you might have to do something different if you're on a Windows system. The steps might be slightly different. On my device, now, oops, here we go. I'm back to normal. I'm going to use what's called some sort of file manager. The one that I recommend is called Lynda File. Let me show you the URL on that. You're going to install an app that's going to look like a file manager that will allow you to access the files on the SD card. So, because you have to access the SD card to find that Hello World file that I put on there, and then we're going to click on the file. So if I go to Google and I just type in Lynda File, L-I-N-D-A, Lynda File Manager. There we go. It's in Google Play. It's absolutely free. One of the best file managers I've ever run into. Puts a little icon. Actually, I have an icon on my desktop here. Oh, installed. Okay, no, it is free. It's still free. Do it on your phone. Go into Google Play or do it on your tablet. Install Lynda File Manager. Here's the free version of it. You just need the free version of it. If I click on, and I see it says Lynda Manager here, if I click on it, it gives me kind of, I can't see it, but if you come up after class, you can kind of see it from their distance. So I get this little list of stuff. I see SD card, I'm pressing on SD card. Going down to the bottom, I see hello today.apk that's on here. So I'm going to press this hello. And look at that, it's a brand new, it's an install. It's asking me, would you like to install it? Do you want to install this application? And I'm going to say, okay, install. A little green line goes around. Looks like it's going to install it. It's installed. Do I want to open it? This you probably could see from a distance. It just says, hello, today is the day, and hello today. Same thing it showed in my emulators. A little faster, don't you think, than messing around with the emulators. And nothing ever beats a real device, right? Because now when I minimize it, I can exit out of Lynda File Manager, exit out completely. If I go to my applications here, there it is on the bottom. It says hello today. And an icon app added. My app is now installed on my Android device. I can carry around, show it to all my friends, and go, look, today's the day. Okay. And they'll all take me to the loony bin. Okay, there we go. But that's how you get it on the device. Another good way of testing. You're going to want to do that eventually. Nobody builds a device and just run it on emulators, regardless of how big your emulator is. Okay, here's what people do, though. Just like I have Windows XP and I have Windows 8, and I used to have 7, but I don't have that anymore. I should put it back. On my MacBook, you can do the same thing with VirtualBox. You can get Galaxy tabs, you can get Nexus devices, you can ISO images of all of them to emulate it to see what it looks like, because sometimes the screens are different sizes, the fonts are different, it just looks different, the colors don't match up correctly. So it's not a bad idea to use those emulators if you don't have the device, but nothing beats actually having a device, but you don't need a device, you can use the emulators. Plus now I have it installed on here, I just added a piece of garbage actually, but I can just pretty much uninstall it if I want to. It gets installed like everything else. I could also take that APK file, this lovely little APK file that I have over here, and upload it to my website. If I put it on my website and you downloaded it from your web browser on your mobile phone will say, would you like to install it? And you don't have to copy it onto the SD card, you can run it right from the website. So all you have to do is put a link on the website, click on the link from your mobile device. Would you like to install hello, what's it called? I don't know, hello today. Sure. And then you have it installed on your computer, same way. So it's, for distribution, it's pretty easy to get it out there. So to totally avoid. In fact, that's what people do for testing, for beta versions. You know, stick it out on a website, have people download it. In fact, you can download Lynda File Manager here, but I do it on the device. You can download it here. It's already installed because I have my Google Play account linked up to this Google account. But these screenshots aren't too bad. This is what I was doing. I was clicking on SD card and then I was going to the contents. Not a bad way of running stuff and getting stuff. So. Now that we know how to run stuff, and get stuff on there. Let's make Hello Today more functional. So for those of you who missed out on this morning and couldn't get it working, one more time I'm just going to build it because it didn't take more than 2 seconds to build it. I'm going to build a fresh app and start from that because then I know everything's going to work correctly. So I'm going to delete Hello Today. I'm done with it. So, and I think I'll remove it from I'm pressing this button here to delete it from my workspace as well. And now that we have internet access back, I can show you where that tutorial is that I'm going through. We're actually going to run through the tutorial now and run that first Hello World program. It is at bhacker.com and it is located in the tutorial section. If you click on the Android link. The tutorial I'm now going through is in the tutorial section, and it is this one here. The first way I haven't gotten past the first one. We want the solution. There's the solution, so we can look at the solution. You know how to import it in, hopefully, so you can cheat. Alright, so for those of you who weren't on schedule this morning but are now connected and ready to go, I'm going to go to File, New, Other, and I'm going to select an Android application project. I'm going to click on Next, and I'm going to give this one Hello. This one is Hello Again. And I'm going to change this here to edu.itu. Spell it correctly this time. And now I have Hello Again with an error message because I have 2 dots here. Take one of the dots out. Next. Next, just leave it all on the defaults. Now I can come back here and say, well, this is where I could have picked out clip art and stuff. You know, I could have picked out texts and images and stuff for my options, but I'll leave it alone. I'm just going to go next. A new blank activity, okay, next. Main activity, yeah, okay, good. Activity main, okay, good. Finish. So I have my brand new project, and in an attempt to make this run a little bit faster on my computer, I'm going to shut down some stuff right now. I'm going to take out this emulator I don't need. Very good. So we went through step number 1. We created a new Android project. We already took the tour of the project to a certain point. There's a few things about the project we'll talk about a little bit more. If you missed any of that or you would like to read through it from a textbook perspective, there's about 20 pages, well, not about 20 pages, about 4 pages of reading that will give you an explanation for the layout, for the values, for gen, for all these things, assets, manifest, project properties, text editor. We ran Hello World in the emulator. Some of us did. I actually got mine to work. So we got that far. So we got to step 3. We created an AVD. Now let's talk about activities. So this is the new part. Simple activity classes. There's 4 major types of component classes in the Android system. We just made a project that uses an activity, which is why the word activity shows up in terms of main activity.java. What's an activity class? Well, it's used to drive a function, usually a single function. So we have single activities per functionality. One activity might load a web page, another one might load Hello World, one might load a screen to input information, the other one might load a screen to output it. It displays the user interface for purposes of performing a single task. You want to break out the activities or the tasks into separate files, because we're going to do that in this project as well. We'll create a new file, new .java file, that will do a different activity, and we'll switch back and forth between the 2 activities. This is as fundamental as it gets, but if you don't grasp the concept of what we're doing, your life as an Android developer is confusing from this point forward. So although this seems kind of basic, it actually is very important to your overall understanding. So remember that there's this activity, and then we also have the concept of services. I'm not going to do any services in this app. This is an activity-based app. We can select some of the features to do a service. A service is just like another service that we get. It's a background process. Activity is a foreground process that's running some sort of function for us, some task. We also have broadcast receivers. These are different types of project components that we're designing. Purpose of the broadcast receiver is to send and receive announcements from events that occur. So It's done through Java Swing. It has event handlers. We broadcast announcements, might signal from a Wi-Fi. A broadcast announcement might come in, and we'll see this with text messaging, hopefully tomorrow. Might come in from an SMS text, might come in from a phone call, might come in from an announcement, some sort of an update, something that happens. That's a broadcast receiver. We're either receiving it and responding to it, or we're sending it out. If we're an email app, most likely we're going to send out saying, hey, you got a new email. Send out a broadcast receiver. It signifies a notification, and all of a sudden you have this thing that comes up on the top of your screen and says, hey, one new message. Oh, how'd that happen? Oh, I was in the class. Missed my messages. We also have content providers. We're going to see content providers. Well, I'm looking at the time. Hopefully today. Not well. We don't catch today. We're going to do tomorrow. We're going to get through all of it. I had kind of a slow start today. Content providers are components that provide data from the phone and from other applications. Our address book, our SMS messages. In fact, we can actually create an email program that piggybacks on the content of our other built-in email program and our other text messages, so we can actually work together with the other content and other services that are on the phone. So that's just another project, another class or component or object type. So what are we going to do? We're going to get the user's name from another activity, so we're going to build a brand new activity. We have a main activity already. Main activity is doing nothing more than loading up our interface screen, our XML interface screen, and putting it out on the window for us to tell us that it's a good day today or something like that. So we're going to have another screen that's going to come up. This is what we're doing. Another screen that's going to come up that's going to ask us to put in a name. We put in the name, it's going to take the name, send it back to the first activity. So we're going to transfer information between activities. The first activity is going to put the name on the screen. It's the basic hello world, but it's done with two different activities, and it's done with an intent to show you how you switch between one activity and another activity, which, believe it or not, a lot of people don't get. So this is an important hello world for foundational material, but some people don't want to bother learning this stuff, so then they get confused when they go further down the road because it's all based the same way. Okay, so we're going to create the user interface first because that's usually the fun part. So we're going to see how we're going to drag and drop over to the XML. So the Android allows you to see the layout in a simple XML specification. So we're going to bring, what are we going to do here? We're going to go into more detail on this topic later. Right now we're going to begin by creating a new Android XML file. We have one that's going to be the main activity. So we have main activity underscore main.xml. That's going to be used for our main activity. We're going to put in a new activity with a new interface to it. So we're going to add a new XML file. So we're going to go File, New, Other, expand the Android folder, put in an Android Xml Layout file, and then click on Next. So let's go ahead and do this. We're ensure that the project matches the name of the project for the folder we're going to put it in. We're going to put it in the Layout subfolder. We're going to call it Name Getter. And I'm going to use the same name because I want my code to match it. And then we're going to select Linear Layout for the root selection, and we'll see what happens. So go ahead and go back to Eclipse. I'm going to close this down here. I'm in the Layout folder, so I'm going to go File, New, Other, Android XML Layout file. Not Android XML file, that's generic, or XML values, that's formatted with key value combinations, but we want a layout file. So then click on Next.
Can you just repeat those?
Yes, I can go back. Hold on one second, let me just close this window. For simplicity purposes, so I can tell where I'm at, I clicked on Layout down here in the resource folder because I want to make sure it goes in here. We want to put all of our layouts together. Our layout is going to be our user interface. So I went up here. I can use the right mouse button if I want, but sometimes I think it's easier to just come up to the File menu, go File, New, and then go into Other, and then click on Android XML Layout file. It's towards the bottom of the list, and it's in the Android category. So you might have to open it up. Once you open it up, it actually stays there. So the next time you go in, it will be at the same spot. And then click on Next. And then I'm going to give this the name. This is where I'm going to paste this in here. I'm going to paste in name_getter. I pasted it in so I wouldn't mistype it. And in the box down here where it says root element, I believe the instructions wanted us to type in linear layout. We don't actually have to type it in. In the old days, you actually had to type it in. You don't have to type it in anymore. Now we just select it from a selectable list. So select linear layout from the selection of root elements. And then click on finished when we're done. These instructions, by the way, are in the PDF file if you're following that around. So now where I clicked, I'm actually on the layout resource subfolder, and now I have NameGetter. So if I click on NameGetter, I see NameGetter's up. And if I click on NameGetter, the thing down here, I see I have a simple little linear layout. Let me talk about XML for a second. It's just like HTML. The opening tag here has a few parameters on it. It has a lot of parameters on it, actually. That's an opening tag. And then this is the closing tag. So the content that we're going to put in is going to end up between the opening and the closing tag. We can write the stuff in ourselves, or we can use the GUI. Well, let's use the GUI. So we're going to click on graphical layout. I'm going to get rid of the console window on the bottom to make this a little bit bigger for me. There's also some things over here, like a little magnifying glass that says plus on it to zoom in. For the visually impaired, that looks good to me. Okay. I like things big. Okay, there we go. Now let's build our interface. So open the new file in the editor tab. Select the tab labeled. Okay, we did that. Switch to the Xml Editor. It should be located in, okay, each GUI item, blah, blah, blah. Let's make a few modifications for it. Let's see. I guess I do have to read this. We're going to change the existing attributes for the linear layout. We're going to set the attribute labeled Android Layout _width and _height to fill parent. Let's see, I think it may already be set that way. So I'm going to go back to the XML code here. Oh, it says match parent, so I'm going to say fill parent here. Leave the quotes in here. So instead of match parent, it's going to fill the parent. What's that going to do? It's going to fill the entire screen instead of going to wherever the parent. In our case, believe it or not, it's probably going to do this. Probably going to be equivalent in functionality, but fill is going to essentially fill the whole screen. All right, this tells Android that the linear layout should take up the available width and height of the screen, regardless of how big the screen is. And then, actually, you know, you do notice that when something is on landscape and you turn it to portrait and you load the new screen in, it might come out small. That's because they matched it instead of filling it, and they matched it with an old layout. They matched it with the settings from the landscape. So it feels a little bit more reliable, actually. Okay, so leave the label labeled orientation, set it to vertical. So let's see. We are on vertical. This is the initial orientation, by the way, which means when we load the application up, it will initially come up into vertical. If we have the device on its side, which you can't do in an emulator, another reason why sometimes you want to get the device, what happens if you turn it on the side? It should automatically detect it, and it will. Even though you have it set, the initial orientation comes up vertical, it will automatically rotate on its own to horizontal. You can set it to initially come up horizontal if you want, which kind of tells the user, hey, you know what, you should turn the phone around. It is meant to be seen horizontally. So, all right, now let's add other 3 UI components to the XML layout. So we're going to switch back to the graphical view. And the 3 elements that we're going to add are going to reside in a category called form widgets and text fields. So open up the category form widgets, click and drag a text view onto the canvas, and then the layout editor will be populated with the label and its auto-generated ID, and we'll take a look at that and see what it looks like. So go ahead and form widget. So I'm going back to, I'm going to do this along with you so you can see what I'm doing. I'm clicking on graphical view. These are the widgets. We're on form widget by default. So form widget is actually open for us. And in here we have text fields. So I'm going to take this one that says ABC on the top, and I'm going to drag it over. So now I have a field here that's called edit text 1. Yes?
Why did you create a new name that XML without using the
I'm sorry, one more time?
Why did we create a new XML, a name given XML?
Because we're going to have two screens in this. We're going to have two different activities. One's going to prompt up a screen that says, enter in your name. And when you press OK, it's going to go back to the first one, which is going to be activity main. That's going to say, hey, Barbara, thanks for entering in your name, or something. Now, I believe I put the wrong one. I put an edit text on here, but it's not that big of a deal, because we're going to put a text on here as well. Because we want a text label. A text label is going to be like, I'll see what it's going to be here. Postal address. Let me see, form widgets. Here's a label. Text view is up here on the top. So I'm going to put the medium one, or I'll put the medium. So now I have it up here. And if I click on here, I double click on it, I got brought to here. And I'm going, oh no, now I'm in a different screen. How do I get back? Well, you just click on here to get back. If you want to get back. I like this interface for adding stuff. We're going to have three components. We're going to have a text label, we're going to have an edit spot, and then we're going to have a button. So I'm just going to drag those three elements on here. Here's the button. And I can see them in my outline over here. I have a medium text. You can put a small text or a large text. Edit text 1 and button 1. Because it's labeled button 1 by default, if I come in here and I take a look, I see now I have opening and closing tags. I have a text view here. This is the closing tag, by the way. I have an edit text, and then I have a button. And my edit text is going to request focus automatically, actually, because I only have one, which means when I turn on go over to this interface, my cursor is automatically going to be in that edit text field because of the request focus. If I have more than one, I can change it. So if it's a form and you want it to be at the topmost element, then you can make that one the focus element. And then when you tab, it'll go to the next one. It's kind of like HTML, yes? Ah, that's the layout. If you move it around, so I'm going to come back here. If I move it around, I see it doesn't work well because I'm in a linear layout. We're going to look at layouts later. We have 5 different types of layouts. We have relative layouts, absolute layout, linear layout, and it determines how when you move things around, some things are centered, some things are less justified, some things are in a line. The form of the linear layout lines everything up left justified down the screen. Comes in handy for something like this. When we want to move it around, then we can change the layout type. We can change the layout type after we've changed the GUI and edit it later, and we're going to see that actually. Yes? Not showing up anywhere. You see it in here? Make sure you're putting it on the white area of the canvas and not on the top. Where do you see ABC? Oh. Did you hit SA orange that shows up like this?
Yeah. It doesn't show up like disabled.
Do you see this orange marking with this plus, with the green plus?
No, for me actually, no, it's not even green plus. It's like a cross mark.
Like an X?
Yeah.
Like not allowed? Oh.
A circle with a cross.
Oh, that means it's not allowed.
So what is
I would check to make sure you got the right format of your XML file, and it's a layout XML file and not another type of XML. If you try to add it to the wrong kind of XML, it won't allow you. When you add it in name getter, make sure that it's of the right format. You might just want to try and do it again. So now I'm going to get rid of this one because I don't want that one in there, so I'm just going to highlight it and delete. So I got rid of the second one. Yes?
Is your medium text widget inside your form text widget, or are those two different widgets?
Medium text is not inside form. I actually didn't put a form text. And under this is the category, form widgets. In here, this is the medium. Yes, I'm sorry. This is the medium text that I dragged over.
Okay, so it's not like it's inside of
Oh, no, it's not inside. I can tell it's not inside, and this is one thing to do actually. Make sure it's not inside. If you see, you should have different opening and closing tags. So my text view tag is my medium text, has a closing tag. My edit text is my edit field, has a closing tag. Actually, closing tag's down here next to the request focus. And then my button has a closing tag. So I have 3 elements that are defined in XML format inside. Now I can put one inside of the other. That is possible. You don't want to do it though, not for this example, unless you got something inside of something. You can do that for multiple sub views. Yeah.
Where's the starting tag of request focus?
Don't edit the text. It's a special. Here's the starting tag is actually here. This is the end tag for this edit text. It's embedded inside of edit text. Just leave it alone. And if you want to take it out, take this guy out and replace it with this to close the tag. But don't leave it alone. If you messed it up, that's the ending tag for the edit. This is the beginning for the request focus, and this is the ending for the entire tag. You don't actually need the space. I can take the space out. So. Hey, have we gotten this far? Believe it or not, it does get easier. Alright, so let's see. Easier for me too. Alright, so let's go. So let's see. Repeat the previous steps for a text field and a button. So what did I do here? Repeat the series steps for a text field category, plain text, text view, text field. Well, text field is an edit field, so either one of them is going to work for us. Okay, so now we're going to add editing. Okay, so now we're going to edit it here, and we're going to do this kind of the not too kosher way of doing it by editing the labels with text strings instead of using strings. In the next project, we'll see how to use the strings. But I just want to get us through one project at least that uses multiple activities. So we're going to start with the with the text view element, and I'm noticing here I've either have messed myself up or they have changed the labeling. It used to be text field, and I believe it's now called edit field. But let me take another look here. Edit text and text view and button. The edit text is the text field. So the text field that's written in this is an older PDF file. And I see text view and text field. One of the text field is going to be the one we're going to put the edit text in it. So the naming is kind of funny, so we'll just follow along and see what happens here. So we have the 3 elements for the form widgets and text fields. Let's see. Editing the text view. This is the label that prompts the user to enter in their name. So it displays a string in the text attribute. So set the attribute to ask for the username. So the Android ID that's going to be appropriately provided for the username has a referencing this element itself. In the code, the syntax here is the ID, my ID. My ID is the handle, which is the syntax. So let me show you the format. Actually, sometimes it looks better if you just show it to you. So it says edit text down here. Interesting. So the medium, where it says medium text, if I double click on the medium text, it takes me to the text view spot and it actually highlights it for me. Right now it says medium text on it. Instead of using a string, I'm just going to put in my text. What the handle that the notes were telling you is that Android : text is the key. The value is going to be equal to, it's kind of like a variable. It's going to be equal to medium text. Well, instead of medium text, I'm going to put in here, enter your name. Enter your name. And then the appearance, text appearance medium, it's just going to give me my medium size text. It's pre-built. Up here, this is text view 1. I could change this. This is the identifier that we're going to see inside of the R file. So I could change it to something more meaningful, like enter name prompt or enter name. So I'm gonna put in enter name, just so I can know which one this is, because I'm already confused with these 3 items on here. So I'm gonna call this one enter name. That's my label. Am I going to use it for anything? Probably not. I mean, it's just going to sit there. What I'm really going to use is the edit text button. So let's see, I'm going to go back to here, and I've set the text to enter your name. Now we're going to edit the edit text button. This is the one that's going to be a little bit more meaningful. And so this is the text field that the user will input their name in there. And so we have a hint label that we can provide for a hint. And then the field is, when the field is empty, it will appear, and then when you put something in, it will disappear for you automatically. So you can set this attribute to instruct the user. So you can make a mental note that the Android ID attribute is used to provide the name of the variable. This is probably going to be called edit text 1. So I think it's called. I'm going to leave that alone just so I remember. I only have one of them in there. It's called edit text. So on the information that you want to change is you want to put a hint in there. And the hint's going to be enter your name. And enter your name is going to show up actually inside of that empty box. So I'm going to go back here, and now I'm looking at the edit text, and I notice there's no hint in here. So I'm actually going to stick it on the next line underneath, and I'm going to type this one in now. I'm going to go Android : hint equals enter your name. So I'm going to have this like light gray kind of thing that shows up, especially, you know, in the old days when you moved your mouse over something, the hint came up, but we don't have a mouse on an Android device, so it's just going to show up in the text field. So I added a hint. Did someone say something? The sequence does not matter, actually. It does not matter. That's a good question. Make sure you put it in before the closing tag, however. You want it before this closing tag on the bottom. I put it in as a second item. I don't know why. I'm going to leave the label as edit text 1. Makes it easier. Okay, so let's go back here. Now we're going to edit the button element. And the button's going to allow you to continue. And so to the next application greeting screen. So it displays the value contained in the Android text attribute. So we're going to set that one to OK or next or submit. And then make a mental note of the current value for the Android ID attribute, because we're going to need to use that in the code. I believe it's probably going to be called button 1 or something like that. So let's change the text on the button so it says something meaningful. Here's the button down here. It does say button 1. So edit text 1 and button 1 are the two things we're going to be working with. And for the text, instead of it saying on the bottom where it says Android : text, I'm going to put here press go, or how about, actually I'll just put OK on the button. How's that? You can put anything you want on the button. So if I now go back to the graphical layout, I see now I have OK, enter your name, and I see enter your name. That's my hint that got printed in there. Because sometimes we won't put this little label up there. So that's a pretty good interface. Well, okay, for hello world. Okay, so I'm going to close the window, so I've saved everything. When I close the window and save it, it updates the r.java file. There's nothing else we need to do. And we're going to need that for the coding, so I've just saved it. So now if I go into, and I'm not going to do this very often, I'm just going to do this one time so you can kind of see, and I click on r.java, I'm going to see I got button 1, edit text 1, enter your name. That's, I changed the name actually of that one prompt. And I have all of the other items in there as well. So I'm going to close this because I don't want to really be in there. But you see that the r.java file got updated for you automatically. When you cut and paste code and you stick it into projects, sometimes it gives you messages about r.java and about importing or including r.java. There's something wrong. You never have to do anything with r.java. If it's telling you that you need to include it or import it, there's something messed up. And don't even work with that because it's never going to compile and it's never going to work for you. Because you took something that is missing something that you needed, and you're not going to get it. So, alright, so now let's see, we're going to have to write some source code. So we're going to create a new activity class. Why are we going to do that? Because we're going to have the main activity call the new activity. So, I hate using this because people don't understand this from the get-go, but this is trying to follow this concept called model view controller. iPhone, iOS is 100% object-oriented, 100% follows the model completely. What does that mean? It means that there's three components. There's the data model, there's the view, and then there's the view controller, or the view, the class file. These activity classes, to equate that traditional object-oriented language to modern-day Java and to make it equal to equal. The activity classes, well, those are our view controllers. The views, we just made our view. That was the name getter. And to answer somebody's question from earlier, we created a new XML file because they come in sets. Model view controller. We have one of these, one of these, one of these. Every view should have its own class that's associated with it. So we should have our own, if we're going to have two XML file layout files, we need to have two classes at least. One's going to be run by the main, the other one's going to be run by namegetter.java that we're going to create in a few minutes. So we have the controller working with the view, and they come in sets. And then we have the main data component, which is going to be our manifest in this case. It's a loose interpretation. It's not as solid as the iOS platform because it's not the same language. But that's where the concept actually is coming from. So we're going to create a new activity class. So to create a new class that extends the Android app activity class, it's going to implement an Android view view.onClickListener. We don't get any behavior for us that happens automatically. In fact, this is the same thing with Swing and the AWT. We have to actually put click listeners on there, but instead of a touch click, we do the same thing with iOS actually as well. We're going to put a listener on there, and we're going to extend it. So what are we going to do here? We're going to put this on here. We're going to create a new method followed by the signature that's going to be public void onClick. And the onClick method is going to respond when our view is clicked. And our view is going to be essentially looking at using or being used by this new class. So just like we did before, we're going to create a new class by doing the following. We're going to go File, New, Other, Android Activity this time. And we're going to select Blank Activity and call the new class getName. So we're going to have getName.java, so let's do that. And it should be in the source code file, and we should use the same package as before. So to automate this process, make it a little bit more sufficient, I always click where I want it to go. It will be put in where you click. So if you're clicking down here at the bottom, which is why I like to close up folders when I'm done using them, and then click where I want the thing to go, and then it will automatically be put there. Otherwise you got to drag and drop, move stuff around. So we want to put it in here. We have one main activity that goes with our activity main XML file. So we're going to go File, New, Other, Android Activity. We're adding an activity in. So it's the first item on the list. And I'm going to go Next. And I'm going to use a new blank activity. And I'm going to click Next. And now it says Layout. Well, we need to change that one to our name getter layout. So I'm probably going to want to change the activity maybe. So I'm going to keep the main activity here, but I'm going to put in here the, let me make sure I'm following the right. Okay, so I'm going to change the layout to that new layout that we just created. But I don't want to create the layout, so I can actually just leave it. And let me show you what happens if you just leave it, actually. Because inside we're going to expand the layout and use the layout. And it doesn't matter which layout is attached to which class. You can actually switch the layouts around. But we don't necessarily need to create a layout. I believe I'm going to have the same problem if I put in, this is a new button actually, so I believe I'm going to have the same problem if I put in the name getter. Yeah, so right now I'm just going to put in here get name. But I want to call this one, what would I call it before? I want to call it get name. So let's change this a little bit here. Get name. There we go. I like that one better. But we already have a get name layout, so I'll make the layout. Oh, I don't want to change the name. I'm sorry?
It should start with a small letter.
The layout should start with a small letter, you're right. Get name. But that's not the problem. The problem is that there's a file-based system response that contains only
Small case letters.
no. Okay. Okay. What did I call this? I can't open it up. What did I call it? Did I call it get name or name getter? Well, I'm going to create this one here. I'm going to put in a different one because I want to show you what happens when you create the classes. We did it in the exact opposite order. I put the XML file in, and then we're creating the class second. Where this wants to do them both together, which is kind of the new way of doing it. So one way or the other is going to work. It's not tied to get name. We can always change it to name getter. In fact, it was called name getter. I'm going to call it name getter 2. Because I want to show you something else you can do as well. So this one's called name getter 2. I'm purposely putting in an extra XML layout file so we can see what's going to go on here. I'm going to leave the navigation type on none. I'm going to go ahead and click on finish. And here now I have, oh, now it's changed my name to name getter 2 activity. That's okay, I can fix that. And then down here I have name getter 2. If I want to, I can make name getter 2 just like name getter 1 by cutting and pasting the XML code and putting it in there. I can also come up here and say, well, I don't want name getter. What did I want to call that thing? I wanted to call it get name. So let's change it. So I'm going to change the name of this one here by right mouse clicking on it, and I'm going to go to refactor, or actually, you know what? I believe, where do you see it? Refactoring. There we go. I was looking for refactor. Rename, and then I'm going to change this one to get name, and I'm going to press on next. And then it says rename compilation. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, good. So finish. Now I have a class that says get name in it instead. So it won't allow you just to rename it because it's referenced in multiple locations. So just in case you missed it, I clicked on refactor and then rename. Refactor rename will allow you to change the name. Regardless, it doesn't really matter what yours is called. You can leave the name alone, or you can refactor and rechange it. If I close this file here and double click on name, get name, I see now I have a class get name that extends activity. But why I want it to do a lot more than this, because that's what this one does. It's just like main here. Main activity that extends activity. Don't worry about the XML files down here. They're not tied as closely as you'd think they were. We don't necessarily want to change the names of these yet, or get rid of them because we might use one or the other or something. Okay, so the new class looks like this. It should be in the same package, and it should say get name on it. Now modify it so it extends the activity and implements the Android view on-click listener. So the finished class looks like this. Well, the biggest changes we ended up with, and I'm going to sort of do this manually so you can kind of show you some other things. The cheat sheet method is take this, copy and paste it, and stick it into the code. You may do that. I'm going to do it a different way. Instead, I'm going to go and copy this here and replace it, and I'm going to see what happens. Because the Android system is going to try and help me. So I've got get name extends activity. Okay. Now I have two extends, so let me get rid of that here. And implements. Now it's going to come back, and if I put my thing over here, I got a syntax error. Activity. Implements. Because I left off the second line here. Put this in here. So, get name is the name of my class. I'm inheriting from activity, which is what the extend means. For non-Java people, you just have to bear with us and then get a Java for Dummies book to understand inheritance. But extends activity means we're inheriting from activity. We belong to an activity object type. And then we're going to implement, which is an interface. And the implementing of an interface requires us to implement methods that exist. The methods that exist are on-click listener and a couple of other items. One of them or two of them are required. So I want to show you how the error messaging works. It's not really an error, although it looks like an error. So I've extended the class to implement the Android view onClickListener. And if I hover my mouse now over here, I see there's two messages here that says, the getName must implement the inherited abstract method view.open onClickListener.onClickView. We implemented it. We definitely need to we definitely need to implement it. So what we can do is change the type of getName to remove it. Make type getName abstract. No, don't do that. So we make it abstract, we'll avoid the problem. But the first one, usually the first one is your best bet. Add the unimplemented method. If I click on that to add the unimplemented method, I see it now, it's down here. That's the new method that was added, which was the onClick, because we need to implement onClickListener. The other two methods that are in here, I have an onCreate, you're giving it to you by default. OnCreate is going to take nameGetter too. Well, don't we want to use nameGetter? NameGetter 2 is that one I added on the interface. If I want to do that, I can just do this. There's no law that says I have to use that interface. So I took out the 2. Create a field nameGetter. Oh, I don't have nameGetter? Oh, that's the menu. Let's see, leave the menu. Actually, we could take the menu out. We're not using a menu in here. You can leave the menu options in there if you do put it on nameGetter too, because there's a nameGetter too. There's no menu for the main menu, or you can change it back to the main menu. The options menu I'm not going to talk about today, I'll talk about another time. Is when you have this little pop-up menu that comes from functionality during the activity. Click on the, press on the back and this menu comes up. That's what that was talking about. You can put another XML file and associate that with the options menu or the menu itself. And we have different types of menus, but that's an entirely different lecture. So that's all the code actually that was in this step. You can, if your code has got errors, you can cut and paste this in there, replace everything in that file and stick this in here. Except for you want to keep the well, do you really need to keep the onCreate? Yeah, you do. So the finished code looks like this so far. Actually, I'm just going to do this just to test my tutorial out, actually. This one isn't really going to be... Yeah, I'm actually going to do that, just to see if it works, actually. I paste it in here. Of course, my pasting wasn't quite the best paste job. Okay, I took out the extra stuff, and I just put this in. I took out the onCreate, because it's probably going to be put back in a future step. And further down the road, we have the code. We can cut and paste and put that in again as well. So, declare a data member of type Android widget edit text like this. This is going to hold a reference to the text field that we're going to enter in when the user enters in their name in the nameGetter. So add a method with the following signature, onCreate. Yeah, see, it's going to have us create the onCreate. It's already there. So your method might already be there as well. So the method's going to go, the data member is going to go right up here. So I'm going to paste it in here. And immediately I'm going to have this little thing, and I'm going to put my mouse over it and go import. So I used okay, so those people who don't have a Java background, but who have a C background or C++ background, this is like saying integer I. Declaring a variable. We're declaring a variable here. It's going to be called name, but the data type is edit text. So in C or C++, if we were doing something like this, we'd include iostream.h, cstring, string to use these data types. Here we actually have to import instead of include, and we have to import edit text. So we can do it automatically by clicking on the top item here, and now we have edit text, widget edit text put in. So in most cases, it's pretty cool. The online help system in Eclipse does actually automate the entire process for you. It does make things a little bit easier. Okay, so what do we got going on here? Now we're gonna, well, I took out the Uncreate, so I'm gonna put it back. Now we're gonna create these, add a method. You might have yours in there already. So I'm gonna put my Uncreate back. Actually, I'm gonna go down here. I'll go down this far. Cut down the one that says name getter. I'm putting back what I took out, essentially. So, because we were essentially building this from scratch, so. And I'm going to fix the formatting here. So now what I did is I put back in the Oncreate. The Oncreate is going to call super.oncreate with the saved instance. This is what I was going over earlier. And then when this object dot set context view is going to use the name getter, the XML file that we have in there. And we can actually delete this other one. I'm just going to leave it in the project. It's not going to do anything for me. So now what you've done is you've created the XML outlet file earlier, obviously, and then we have the Android plugin that's going to automatically create the r.layout for us, which we're taking advantage of. So we're going to make a call to this field to find the value of edit text ID, whatever we happen to be. I think it was called edit text 1. And then set the edit text member variable equal to that return value. So we're going to add this line of code here. I'll cut and paste and stick it in the code so you can see what I'm doing here. So on the onCreate, which is the method that's going to trigger as soon as this activity gets started, the activity is going to load up, get the contents from name getter, set the context view to name getter, excuse me, which is going to show the name getter layout actually. And then the name, which is this edit name up here, we could have just said name, edit name, name. So this is a reference, declaration of a reference, and this is the use of the assignment to the reference. So name is equal to edit text, this dot find view by ID, r dot edit text 1. Well, edit text 1 is that field in the name getter XML file. Yes? I'm sorry? That's the name that I gave the label. Well, if you named your text field that, put that in. I named my label that. So it was the text view that I changed it. But yeah, if you change the other one, change it to whatever you changed it to. Mine, I think I left it on edit text, which is why I'm not getting. You shouldn't get any red marks there. Everything should be working for you. So make a call to this field for the button. Alright, so we're going to make a call to find the view for by the ID for the button and set the local widget button reference equal to the value button. Or button value, excuse me. So the button should be replaced by the ID that we have, I think it's button 1 actually in our ID, specified in the name getter.xml file.
So only after onClick we have to get the name from the editor's file. So why are we creating it in the onCreate method?
OnCreate method happens automatically when the view comes into appearance. It's the controller behind the view. When the controller loads up nameGetter, we're going to pull the text from nameGetter that the person typed in, and then we're going to check for the button. When the button is clicked, we're going to take that and we're going to pass it to the main view. No? No. What was your question then?
Actually, after pressing the button, right?
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet, but yes.
No, only after pressing the button, the text entered by the user has to be passed on to the.
But we're going to put it in a variable and it's going to be called name. And we're going to get it from, we're going to find the view by this ID, and the ID that we're looking for is edit text 1, and we're going to have that equal to name. So we don't have to go get it from the view. The view is going to be gone actually, and we're going to load another view up, but we'll still have name. So basically we're just getting from the view by this ID, and the ID that we're getting is edit text 1, taking that and making it equal to name. Name is of data type edit text. This is of data type. This is a cast for this string that's coming through to make it into an edit text data type. So we're just using it as a standard data type. Yes?
This onCreate method is executed when the page is loaded.
Yep, it's like main. It's automatic. You can't call it Oncreate when the
The one,
object is created. The Oncreate automatically gets invoked.
the one, while page is loaded, we haven't written anything on the text field. So it should pass the null and nothing as a string.
Yeah, it'll be empty.
It should be
It'll be empty. Yeah.
Then after the page is loaded,
Mhm.
we enter the name and then we click the button.
Mhm.
So how would it get the name in the name field? Will it load the page?
Well, we have to write the button click, which will take the name and add it to the name.
And the name is taken.
But we might be flipping back and forth. We can load this from a resume, and then the on create from a resume, it will recreate it. Will actually take. If you already have a name written in there, why not use it again next time that screen is shown? You can go back to that screen. If you do, then you're going to you want to restore the data that's in that form.
So
And then the button press we haven't gotten to yet. When the button gets pressed, then we take the information and we pass it to the appropriate spots. Let's look at the button press. So let's add a button. Button. And the button's going to keep track of the button 1. Because we could change the button ID if we want. Change it. So right underneath name, I'm going to put button. So button, and then I'm going to click. I'm not clicking, I'm just hovering my mouse over the little red stuff here, and it says import button. Okay, import the button. So I added the button. And now on the onClick event, I'm going to add this line of code here for the button. I'm just going to take the last line and add it. The code kind of just accumulates as we go through this. So underneath name, I'm going to put button. There we go, name and button. The button's doing the same thing, by the way. It's just converting it to a button type. So we're going to keep track of the button. Why? Because we want to know if the button got pressed. How many times did it get pressed? So we're going to make a call to the button set on click listener. And it's going to set a listener on the button. We have the button. The button is on. So this is the way that we're connecting. So in iOS, I call it wiring. Wire from the now I have to think, storyboard or the view to the controller file. We're just doing it we're doing the same thing. We're wiring the buttons, the text field, and the label from the XML to the Java code so we can use it. And we actually have to put the listener on here. This is straight AWT swing kind of technology. We're just putting an on-click listener, or set on-click listener to this. So I'm going to go back into here and add underneath. You might have to change button 1 to whatever you change the button to if you change the button. Button set on-click listener to this. So I have the button set. Fill in the on-click method stub. Well, we have the method stub already, and this is what's called the method stub down here. It says on-click to do. It created the auto-generated method stub. So I'm going to put some room in here because I'm going to add some code to it. We're going to retrieve the user entered text from the text field and keep it in a local string variable. That is one called name. Then we're going to create an Android context intent object. The intent object is going to be our plumbing between activity 1 and activity 2. So I'm going to go over intents in a lot more detail probably tomorrow morning because I want to get through some stuff here. But as I mentioned earlier, think of it like a pipe in Unix pipe. We're going to send something from this activity to that activity. We need to install the plumbing in between. The plumbing is just, it's an intent. Why they named it intent? Don't know. I would have named it like a pipe or something, but it's a hose, a pipe, a tunnel, a path between the two. So we can bundle stuff up and send it with the intent, which is what we're going to do. We're going to send the name to the intent, through the intent. So we're going to need to create the intent. So we're going to create an content.intent object, which is going to be new intent this for main activity.class. I'll show you the code in a few minutes, but this is what we're doing. So we'll use the intent object to start the main activity greeting. So it does more than just a pipe. It's more than just a data transfer back and forth. One actually starts the other. So it's the way that we tell the objects to, all right, you go away, and I'm going to take up the space now in the app. So pass it the information, and we'll discuss intents in a lot more detail in the later labs, obviously. Essentially, they are used to interact with other application components. So we're putting what's called a put extra. A put extra is a key value combination. We put it inside of the intent. We send the intent with this extra information. In our case, the extra information is going to be name and then whatever the user typed into that field for the name. And we're going to pass it to the, well, this is the lab 1 activity, but the main greeting activity, whatever we wanted to, whatever we called it. I think it's called main activity. Method of function is like a hash map, actually. So we have an association between the key value. So we have the intent that should be placed. The intent should be placed with the intent object. The key is going to be placed with a string that's going to access the user's name. And then we have the value, which is going to be replaced by the user's name, whatever you obtained from the text from the edit field, and they entered in the text. And we're going to use a get text to string method to convert it. So the finished code after these steps are added in looks like this. So I'm just going to take this, copy it, and paste it into my onClick method. And see that my word wrapping didn't work. So I'm going to find, here we have there's only 2 lines. So naturally I haven't imported anything for intents yet, so I'm going to have to do that. So I'm going to hover my mouse over and it's going to say import intent. Sure, why not? So I'm going to import intent. And now all my errors went away. So I'll have a little bit more, actually a lot more information on intents and coming up. But for right now, let's just kind of assume that's going to work for us. And then we're going to make a call to this .start activity, the intent. So the intent's going to say, I want to think about, I intend to run this application or this class file. So my name getter intends to run main activity, and then when it intends to run it, it's going to pass it this information so it knows how to run or knows what it's supposed to do. So this start activity, my intent, so this needs to be the last line here, so I'm going to paste this in here. Now I'm actually going to start the activity that's going to run. So this .start activity. This command will initiate the switch to the main activity, to the greeting activity. From the greeting activity to the main activity, actually. Switch to the main activity from greeting activity. So when we load up the application, we want the main activity to come second, and we want nameGetter to come first. So we have to tell the manifest which, because now we have 2 activities in this project, which of the activities do we want to have started first? So Android manifest now needs to be edited to load the right one. We're also going to need to register the intent to make sure that that's okay. So we give permission for the intent, and then we tell the manifest, which one of these activities do we want to load. So manifest contains all the application components, also includes the components that should be used for different scenarios. So we need to tell the application to use the new activity to start up. So begin by double-clicking on the Android manifest.xml file to open it up. Look at the layout file through the manifest editor, switch to the XML editor by clicking on XML. I'm going to do that in a few minutes. Find the first opening activity tag and change the name labeled for Android name that's going to be equal to .main activity. Change it to .getName activity. So let's go back into Android. Right now, if we actually ran it right now, which we probably could, it should run, but we're just going to see the main activity. We're not going to see this other activity. So what I'm going to do is actually save this file, because this file is pretty much done. The Oncreate's created, and the intent's created, and now I have the onClick, so I'm going to go ahead and save it so I don't accidentally modify it. I'm going to click on the manifest, and I'm going to come down here to manifest.xml. And I'm going to come up to the top here, and I'm going to look and say, well, I'm looking for one that says, I got the package, I got the version, I've got the SDKs, I've got one that says application. And then I've got one that says a background, icon, label, theme, application name. And I see hello again .main activity. So my application name, as it's written up here, should now say get name or whatever I called, not the XML file, but whatever I called the activity file that I created. So if I go back into my project, I can see up here it says getName.java. Instead of it loading mainActivity.java, leave this in here, leave the path. I'm going to change this one to getName. So this one's now getName. And I shouldn't have any red marks or anything. I've just now told the manifest that I'm no longer starting this app when it loads up is no longer going to load my main activity, it's going to load my getName activity instead now, which is what I've done. Believe it or not, that's something people can't figure out. You go online and you search, a program won't run. It's like, did you change the main activity? And you see, you know, a bunch of hundreds of questions on the same thing. It's like 9 times out of 10 problems in the manifest, because it's not, the wrong activity is loading. So the intent filter tag that you see is nested inside of the activity tag is what tells the application that the activity is the main. So also starting up the activity. So add the following line, the following opening and closing activity pair underneath the activity pair you just modified, nesting inside of the application tag. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the activity we just took away. But we're going to add it in the application but under another activity. So let's take a look at the code for a second here. It's the start of the application tag. Here's the end of the application tag. We just edited this one here. I'm going to make some spaces here so you can sort of see it. Here's the start of an activity. Here's the end of an activity. And we have another activity tag down here. Ooh, that was added for us automatically. I wonder if this did it for us automatically. I'm going to paste this in. We'll just leave this one in here. The get name changed for us automatically, or did it? Yes?
When I change the get name, it says you're duplicating the name. I'm getting that right.
Did you change it up here?
Yeah, and where it was main activity, I
Mhm.
changed there to get name. But still, since I have this activity down, there it shows that you're duplicating name.
I have to take a look at it later.
Actually, try to just try
You got
to
the same
save
thing?
it. Try to save it.
Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Take this out down here. This is extra, we don't need it. The newer version, let's save it again. Take the second activity out. By default, okay, so here's the problem. The makers of the SDK decided to automate a little bit. Just the same way as they automated putting that, let's do an XML layout as well, along with the class activity. And that could be the option not to do it, which is how we ended up with 2 of them down here. And also put it in the manifest for us automatically. And that's such a good thing in my opinion. So take it out and the error message will go away. But thank you for bringing that up. So I probably would have noticed it eventually when I tried to save it. But thank you. So we're not going to deal with that later, we're going to deal with it now. Put the activity back in, however, for main activity. Because right now we're set with get name as this other activity. So now we have both activities in. I just saved mine. Mine appears to be working. I hope that yours is as well. If not, at the end here we can cut and paste this whole thing in here and this should work. Okay, so this delegates that the Android device, that the application that has an activity component named main activity is able to be run. We basically put it in. We have to list both activities. If you don't add the tag, the Android will not launch the activity. So to finish it, your finished code should look like this. I'm actually going to do something probably stupid. And it says hello on it. Could cut and paste it, or I could just leave it. I think I'll just leave it. So at this point, you should try to be able to run the application, and the application should start up and display the name. Be able to enter in the name in the text field and hit the button, which should run the old main activity greeting that should appear. Let's see what happens. I think we have to add the intent, but no, the intent's in here. Intention action main. Well, let's see what happens. I'm going to run it and see what happens. So I'm going to have to load my editor back, my emulator back up. So I'm going to start my emulator. Have you guys run it? Or you? Mine should hopefully run faster. I believe I have to add another line of code in there, but let me just take a look. Something seems missing to me, but we'll see. I think I have to register the intent. But we'll see. Main activity. Intent category now. Maybe it will work. Because we're not quite done yet. We have another part left too. We have to take the name and do something with it. We haven't actually put the intent in. So I'm starting up my emulator so that I can run it and see what happens here. So I'm going to click on hello again. And I'm going to run it. It says an Android application. Running a bit slow. So I have a little bit of success, but I still haven't sent the name. I'm still missing that part, so we're not quite done yet. So if I put in a Barbara, and I press OK, I see hello world. So I haven't actually sent Barbara to the main activity yet. But your activity should work at this point. And if I press, here's the other thing too, so if I press escape to go back, or the back button to go back, I still see my name written in there, so it automatically takes it out, even if I don't. So we're working so far. Hopefully you are too. Easier said than done. I guess I should escape out of here so I don't load up. Make sure I load the next one. Okay, so moving right along, we have to send the name now through the intent. So greeting the user. Okay, so now we've got the name retrieval and we have the activity set correctly. So we're going to update the main activity greeting activity to print out the user's name when you entered it in the Oncreate method of main activity. So it's going to receive a bundle of information through the intent, which is going to be the data that it's going to use to populate out a label, essentially. So we're going to make a call to this.getIntentGetExtras because we added it to the key values that we added to the extras to retrieve it. And so this is going to place the user's name in the entered name field, and it's going to return the Android OS bundle object, just like it does a hash map. You don't have to worry about what a hash map is, just think of it like a hash table or a dictionary key value. So we're going to add this guy here. This is the guy that's being added in bundle. My input is going to be equal to this.getIntent.getExtras. Because although we're sending it, we're not getting it. So we have to send in accept. So go ahead and open up, and this time we're going to open up the main activity because we're going to do this in the main. So I'm going to shut this window here. This is the manifest. I'm going to close my manifest down. I'm going to click on mainActivity.java. On the Oncreate menu, Oncreate options, Oncreate method is what I meant to say. I'm going to paste in here, and what I'm pasting is my input. It's going to be equal to this.getIntent.getExtras. So far we've told get name about the intent. We actually create the intent with the button that we're pressing. If you go back here and take a look at, compare, we'll see what's going on. On the click events. So when we press the button and we put the onClick event on the button, when we press the button we're going to create this intent. This is an object creation. Get one of those. In fact, if anyone's looking for a good Java book at the end, I can tell you where to go for one that's really cheap. That's, you know, the bare bone minimum that will get you by. It's by Deedle and Deedle, How to Program Java. Highly recommend that book. But this is just creating an instance of an object. The instance of the object is going to be called myIntent. And myIntent put extras. So naturally, from getName in the main activity, we're going to get extras. Get intent. So get intent, and then we're going to get extras instead of create the intent and put the extras, which is what we're doing. So it's a send and receive kind of thing. So we're going to get the extras, and what we're going to do is we're going to have to populate it somehow. So we're going to set the reference to the text field. That's the one where we called my, no, that's the enter name. No, that's on the other form. So we're going to have a text field that we're going to have on the main form. We already have one. So set the reference to the text field object in main.xml. Do we actually have one? I'll check for that in a second. So in the activity underscore main.xml, which we're going to go look at here, we're going to put, in fact, this is a good thing to experiment with. Open up activity underscore main.xml. Oops, not Xcode. This is our initial name. We'll take a look here. Oops, not name getter, I'm sorry. It's activity underscore main, our other one. That's just showing hello world. There's a text object in the middle of the screen right here, text view. If we go and click this one here, we see there's a text view on there. We can actually move the text view. In fact, why is it in the middle of the screen? That's kind of weird. Oops. Now I put it up here. Now it's on the top of the screen. I can't move it down. Let's make this a little bit bigger so I can play with it. And we'll put it right here. There we go. I moved mine around. We know we can add more stuff to this if we want. You know, we just drag and drop it and put it on there. Throughout the next day or so, we'll be adding a bunch of stuff to it for our other projects. But anyway, long story short, it's going to look the same in here. We have the text view. It's going to have the string that we set on here, hello world. But what are we going to do in here? We're going to add the text view. We're going to add the ID, make it text view 2. So in here, we've changed the ID to text view 2. So I'm going to paste this in here where it says ID. Now I have it for text view 2. But this is what I was going to show you. We can actually do this if you want to, and this is what we're going to do in some of the other examples, rather than having the tedious and put this in here, and put this in there, and put this in here. We could just take this whole XML file where it's right here. It's a relative layout. Change the layout actually, because I think we're working with a different layout. And I'm going to copy this one here. And I'm just going to come over here. Oh, it is relative. Get rid of this stuff here and just paste it in here. Now I've actually created this layout. What does this layout look like? Let's see. Oh, put it in the middle. A lot of good that did. Okay, well, I'm going to move this. I don't like it over there. I'm going to put it right there. There we go. So basically we're adding the ID, and the ID that we're adding is for text field, text view 2, because we're going to call that ID from the layout. We're going to put the name in there. Because we got the name now from the intent, and we're going to populate that. We need an ID. It didn't have an ID before, but now it has an ID. So we'll save the file. Believe it or not, we are almost done with Hello World. Then we're going to go back. So we're going to set the text of the text view object to say hello and your name. So the name should be replaced by the name that the user entered in and we got retrieved. So this is the new piece of code here. The new piece of code here is going to say text view t. Create a text view. Create a new variable called t that's of data type text view equal to new text field this. T equals, and then it's going to be find view by ID. Well, that's text view 2 that we put in there. And text view 2 is the one that we're going to essentially populate. And what we're going to do, we're going to take hello and we're going to say plus the username, the uname. And the uname came out of, this variable here came out of the key value that we gave it, and we'll just double check that real quick. Actually, if I put it in here, I'll get an error if that wasn't the right value. So right underneath where we put the bundle in there, I'm going to paste in this line, and I'm going to take and put my line returns in here. So I have 3 lines now instead of 2. I'm going to hover my mouse over this ugly stuff, and it's going to say import text view. Yeah, sure, why not? So I clicked on the import text view. All my ugly lines went away. No more error messages. Hopefully yours did the same thing. And so what's the uname? Well, the uname is going to be what's going to be inside of our intent. So let me go take a look at my intent here. I'm going to refresh my memory. I'm going to come back over here and say, here it is here. Here's the uname. The uname is the key. The name is the value that we took from the edit text field that was on the name getter form. We took the value, the get text from that field, we added it to name. We used name along with uname as the key for username. So we're taking the key out of here and we're saying, well, get the string uname. The string uname is going to be the string name. So the intent when it sends over the bundle is it's sending it over in a hash format. So we have key value, key value. So we can identify what we're sending over. We're just sending over one item. But if this was a huge form, it could be name, address, telephone number, contact information, all this other stuff. And we don't know what's in there. We just know the keys. We don't actually know the values that are associated with it. So now what we have is a runnable program. So now when we run it, it should be working now. So let's take a look. Whoops. So I still got my emulator out there. I'm going to just run it. And I'm running it as a... And okay. So now I'm going to put in Barbara. I'm going to press OK. And it says, hello, Barbara. So now I know my intent's working. So we basically have used 2 activities with 2 views, put them together, and so on. So what happened to this other view out here? I still got some garbage in here. I got namegetter.2. Well, I can just delete that. Didn't need it. And now we know the manifest is going to put it in there automatically too. Don't need it. Don't need it at all, actually. We can create, but now I know in the future that the new template, this is a new version actually, that the new template has it together. So you create the class and it does the XML file with it. So exporting your app, you can now copy the APK file that was created. It's in the bin directory. And then you can connect your device, drag it over, run it, run File Manager, and lo and behold, we actually have completed our first app. Yes?
When you click on the button,
Yes?
it redirects us to the main activity viewer. So where the intent is going, it should redirect it to the main.
This one goes to the main activity.
Right. So where are we saying?
Where are we saying that? Good question. Actually, let me shut, I don't know why I have Xcode up. My computer automatically wants to bring up Xcode. Where are we doing that? In the button press. So in the button press, in getName, on the onClick event for the button, we're creating the intent, and then we're taking the intent, and we're sending it the bundle. We're putting the extra information of the name, and then that's where we're going. This activity, start, what's it going to start? My intent is going to load up main activity.class. Everyone got theirs to work? That, believe it or not, is the hardest one we have to do. Actually, not really hard, but it's... The first one is always the slowest one. After that, we'll be cranking out apps after apps. It's no problem. So, usually the first one is, and where do you get this and where do you get that? Because all we're going to basically be doing from this point forward is the same stuff over again. Add a new activity, add a new intent, or add a new view, or add... So those are the main components that we're working with. I believe it's probably time, a good transition time for a short break. Especially because we haven't had one since lunch. And then we'll continue with tutorial number 2. We'll actually look at the life cycle, which is actually a little bit easier. So, Hang in there. It'll get better.